So we now finished Sefer Bereshis. Sefer Bereshis ends with two powerful parshas, Vayigash and Vayechi. And the last major character of all the others in Parshas Bereshis is Yosef Tzaddik. Yosef Tzaddik is the epitome of B'tochen, the Baal B'tochen. And he had a tragic life. As a young boy, he was sold by his brothers. They thought he was a roideif. They misinterpreted what's going on. They thought he was a roideif. They wanted to kill him, but they were nice. Instead of killing him, they threw him in a pit. Then they sold him to slavery. You know what it is to be sold into slavery in those days? Sold into slavery. And then he gets a job with Potiphar. And then his wife starts up with him. And he's thrown into jail he's on trumped up charges of assault. And it's in all the newspapers. He's hearing from all the inmates. Oh, you heard it was in the New York Times, the Cairo Times, all about this guy. And he's in the jail for 10 years. Finally, he's got a chance to get out. And because he said two words, Zochar Zekartani, Nochet Tzveyor, another 2 years. He had a hard time. Now he's standing there, his brothers, after the whole thing with the brothers and checking them out and calling them spies. I'm not going to go into the reason. He was Alpi Kabbalah, and he was trying to give them a kapara. He meant for their own benefit to give them the hard time. And he announces, I'm Yosef. Announces, I'm Yosef. How do we feel when we go through, they have the new word. When I was growing up, it was called the Nisoyan. It was a test. That's the way Chazal look at it. It's a Nisoyan. So people, for some reason, they don't like that word. So when I was writing my Svarim, so the editor says we don't use that word anymore. It's called a challenge. So what do you do?
What's wrong with the word?
I don't know. Ask all the time.
You don't like hard things?
People are afraid.
I'm not getting anything. It's just someone's
test.
trying to torture me.
No, test means somebody's testing you.
There's no
So they
purpose
want a
for it.
par of a word that doesn't talk about him. So they call it a challenge, which is par of. And even an atheist can understand the word challenge. So, anyway, it's a test. Okay, so.
It's a test. Okay.
So, what happens to us when we, terrible things happen to us. You get your best friends. They stab you in the back. In businthis.
In Hebrew, Nisan has two meanings.
Yes, three.
Test has two meanings.
Yeah.
ניסיון זה לא מבחן, זה בדיקה.
Oh, it's true. That's a medrash. Anyway, I have that in my sefer. Right.
That's what the test. It's like exam. It's like
right. But it's true. That's exactly what the medrash says. It's a mivchan.
It's מבחן.
It's
not
in
order to make you better.
It's a bedika.
It's not to make you better. It's to avoid you.
So there are many. Every word in Hebrew has many meanings. The Ramban says it has the word nisayon. The Medrash says it means to be boidek. It also says from the word nes, to lift on high. It lifts the person up, right? And secondly, it's a flag because it shows how great the person is. So it's got three meanings according to the Ramban. Reb Zedel has a whole schmooze on this. Yes, they're all true. They're all true. Anyway, what happens what happens to us when you know, we've been done in dirty by our best friends? It happens. Bad business deals. Somebody took advantage of you, or you got into trouble with the I don't want to say it, but you know, the tax authorities or whatever. You know, they suddenly decide to do a major audit on you.
Your best partner.
Yeah.
Biggest numbers.
So what is Yosef? How does Yosef respond to this? Now listen to these words. V'ato, he says, he's meeting his brothers for the first time. He says, I am Yosef, that you sold me to Mitzrayim. Wouldn't you feel a grudge? Wouldn't you feel you want to spite them? Wouldn't you feel something, you know, you feel in your heart, you know, oh, you're the guy who did it to me, you know, you did me, you know. Don't feel sad. Don't get angry with yourselves because you sold me. Because you sold me because it was to give food to our family at the time of the famine. 2 years of the famine, there's another 5 years of the famine, and it's going to be it's a deadly famine, and I was made viceroy. Listen to what he's saying. This is wonderful. The brothers feel bad. He already heard them speaking Hebrew. They thought he didn't understand Lashon HaKodesh. And he heard that they were saying, you know, Hashem, it's all our fault. We didn't listen to him when he was pleading with us. So he knew they had done tshuva. So here he is, magnanimous. Now he's the viceroy of Egypt, and he can overlook it and all his feelings of, you know, what am I going to gain by taking, you know, it worked out well. Look, you know, even, you know, look, I became the second in command. So now I can overlook. I can be magnanimous, that's the right word. I can be magnanimous, and I want to calm you down. So he's trying to placate them, because they're angry with themselves, what they did. They sold him, and they caused such aggravation to their father, right? And now all this is happening to them, and they're petrified. Now he says, I'm Yosef, and they you know, all their feelings of self guilt. Calm down, you know, it wasn't so bad after all. You meant bad, but you know, it worked out okay. Look at me, I'm the big, you know, I'm the viceroy now. That's the way a modern rabbi would look at it. He's being magnanimous. Yosef, he overcame his feelings, and he's trying to placate them.
Is there even a Hebrew word for that? Is there like a concept in illustrator like magnanimous, or that's not us?
I don't know what the word is. Sorry, go.
Listen, there are many levels of response according to who you are and where you're holding. Is it a response? Yes, it is a response. Is it good to overlook? Yes, it's good to overlook. But I want to tell you, Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz of the Mir, the Mashgiach of the Mir in Europe, and he was an Ish Emes. So the Torah, when we learn, we want to learn Emes, and it's I once heard there's a difference in two words which are very, very telling. There's the word aspiration, what I aspire to be. I aspire to be the best. I aspired for the top. I aspire to get to the pinnacle. And then there's expectation. I know who I am. I know where I'm going. I know my limitations. I know what's really going to happen. I know how many times I've fallen flat in my face in the past, you know, how many Rosh Hashanahs have gone by, and I had made all these, you know, these resolutions, and here we are again making the resolutions all over again. So There's expectations. So is there, I want to tell you the aspiration, because the Torah, that's what we always shoot for the top and know what the top is. So Rabbi Yerucham says that is not pshat. He says, Lo kein ruach ha-Torah. When you read the Torah, al te'atzvu, don't feel bad, don't get angry with yourselves that you sold me. He's trying to placate them. Rabbi Yerucham says, you're reading it wrong. Learn how to read the Torah straight. We don't want to do it because it's when we read the Chumash straight, so it's binding on us, and you feel a little bit, obligated, and you feel, so you want to sort of like calm it down a little bit, so you reinterpret it so that you can swallow the pill. It's a very big pill to swallow. No, let's read it straight. Big pill, small pill, let's aspire for the top. Lo kein ruach ha-Torah. That's not what the Torah is saying. Push it, pshat. Push it, pshat. The ator, and now you should know. Lo atem shalachtem oisi heino. You didn't send me here. Kiyu Elokim. God sent me here. Hashem sent me here. V'yisimenu la'av l'paro, and he made me viceroy. This whole incident, from the beginning to the end, it wasn't you. You didn't do a thing. Hashem sent me down to Mitzrayim. We discussed last week why he had to wind up in Potiphar. He was a big minister in the government, and then he went to jail with all the political prisoners, and he learned all the secrets of the palace and the language of the palace and all the way to handle, and he learned all the intricacies and intrigues of the palace intrigues. And he made him viceroy. Hashem did this to get me here in order to give you food. That means Yosef looked at this totally and absolutely. You had nothing to do with it. You are not players in this. The whole incident, it's all from Hashem. This is a very hard concept. It's a very hard concept. But we have to aspire for it. Aspiration. We have to aspire for it. Because this is the real. And he says this. You have to hold on to this concept with two hands, says Rabbi Yerucham. Hold on to this with two hands, because we all wind up in situations. I want to tell you.
Is this only because they did bad to him, or if they would have done good to him?
Anything.
Because of the good.
Anything. Now, 1 second. If somebody does good to me, I have to be thankful. I have to be moida. I can't be a kafui toiva. He did some, but ultimately, he was a shliach from the Rebbeinu Shalom. Everything that happens to me is a shlichus from the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's a very hard concept to swallow, but it's absolute truth.
I saw somewhere that Yosef never forgive them, which means
that's something else.
No, I'm saying it's not a
So
contradiction to what he's saying.
There's machlekes, the Rebbeinu Bechaya, and the Orach Chaim.
Just that they're punished. That's Asor Malchus.
That's for sure.
Forgive them.
That's for sure. There's the medrash of the Asor Harugi Malchus. So the Orach Chaim says on the Beinon L'Chavero he was Moichel, but he couldn't be Moichel on the Beinon L'Makom. And by a Ben Noach, there's no, if a person steals, a Ben Noach steals, even if he gives it back, there's no. We have a pasuk that says Pashav Teshiva and give it back. And then that eradicates the Geneva. And then we could do, Kippur on Yom Kippur. It's only allowed. But by Ben Noach, it's Chiyuv Misa. And once you did it, you did it. So he had no control over. That was
What was telling the Noach?
I don't want to
Is
get
that
into
their fault? What was telling them?
as far as I'm concerned, is not, you didn't do it.
So if what?
You did, don't,
They have no responsibility on it. It happened.
Chas v'shalom,
לא קשור אליו.
they have,
How to קשור אליו.
that's a different question.
That's
What
not-
was their responsibility? I don't want to go into that because we see from the Asura Ruke Malchus. So that's a different shmooze I'd have to give. When you look at the Ovis, the Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and these are the Shvatim. So this is the foundation of Klal Yisrael. On the foundation of Klal Yisrael, Kadosh Baruch Hu, we've been around for how many years? Since Avram Avinu, 3,000 years. Since Avram Avinu, maybe more. I don't know. I didn't make the cheshbon, right? But we've been around for probably more. More. It's 3,500 years probably. You make a cheshbon. How we've been since Avram Avinu. So no other nation can make that statement, you know. And we are the chosen people by Hashem. So if we're around, we have to be so solid that we are. The foundation has to be perfect. The foundation has to be perfect. If you have a giant skyscraper, right, the Empire State Building or the Twin Towers, Allah Shalom, right? So when they build it, when they build the foundation, it has to be perfect. There's one little crack in the foundation, so after a few years, it acts up and
3,835.
close to 4,000.
3,835. We have the.
You hear? So if there's one little crack, one little imperfection in the foundation, the shayrish of Klal Yisrael, it shows up later on. That was by Avraham Avinu. One little imperfection in his emunah, and we had 210 years in Mitzrayim. We don't understand. It doesn't seem fair, but we have to understand on a ruchniya scale, that little bit of imperfection in Avraham Avinu, so it had to be cleaned out, so that Klal Yisrael, when we came out of Mitzrayim, and we've lasted since Yetzias Mitzrayim 3,000 years. It's amazing, and we lasted.
I'm trying to understand.
But we were also, but look, but all the imperfections, like it caused with the first the Korban and the second Korban was still in the Korban. So there was still an imperfection that didn't get cleaned out. Anyway, that's
What's Yosef telling them? The what? I don't understand it. What
don't feel bad for me.
Why?
You didn't do it.
What do you mean you didn't do it?
You, for yourself is one thing. You didn't do anything to me.
Yeah, but it's
As
if
far as I'm concerned, you didn't do anything.
That's right.
so they had a problem with Bitochen?
No, they had.
They
Misunderstood. They misunderstood, and they judged him wrong. And the fact that they did not overcome their negios in judging him wrong, so that's their issue that they had, that they did something wrong, and therefore they're Asar HaRugi Malchus, and it was a blemish in Klal Yisrael for thousands of years until Rabbi Akiva was thousands of years later. It was a blemish in Klal Yisrael. But as far as Yosef's concerned, that was Yosef's betochen.
Yeah, but he doesn't tell them I don't believe you did to me something. He's telling them something else. He's telling them, listen, you think you did something, you did nothing.
As far as I'm concerned,
Hashem, no, is
yes.
that,
As far as I'm concerned, they did something.
but he's telling them,
They did something. But there was between them and Hashem. That's the Orach Chaim. Between them and Hashem, so they did a mechira, kidnapping, stealing a nefesh. Kidnapping, stealing a nefesh is one of the worst. That's worse than stam geneva. They were chayv misa, but it was on such a it was b'shoigeg. It was such a fine, infinitely small blemish. They couldn't see it, and it only came out later with the Asura Ruge Malchus. Okay, anyway, but that I can't mix parshas. I'm talking about how Yosef's attitude is. Now listen to this. Listen to this. There's a Maisa. I heard a shmuz. There's a Rosh Hashiva in Cleveland. Yisrael Brag. Yisrael Brag is a Rosh Hashiva in Cleveland. He's the grandson of Avigdor Miller. He's the grandson of Avigdor Miller, and he's a Talmud of Meir Soloveitchik. So Tzal, one of the sons of the Brisker Rav, and he's got very strong Brisker Shitas, and especially in B'tochen. This is my that's happened. Just it's finishing up now. Says there's a fellow. He says that came to abroad. What happened? He bought a house. And bought a nice house in the suburbs somewhere. I don't know exactly where. And he paid $50,000 to furnish it, top to bottom. Beautiful furnishings, a bedroom set, but giant beds, like not little tiny, but real proper giant, king size beds, and all the proper furniture, and the console, and a fully, equipped kitchen, and he bought, he put in a pool with pool furniture and lawn furniture, a whole top to bottom he had to have, and he wanted to rent it out. So finally he found a renter. It was a family that just arrived from Eretz Yisrael, and signed the deal, and they're renting. After a couple of months, all of a sudden they stop paying rent. We're not paying rent anymore. What do you mean not paying rent? What do you mean not paying rent? You got to pay rent. I'm not paying rent. He says, you have to pay the rent. If you ask me one more time for the rent, I'm going to take the house away from you. What are you talking about? Take the house away from me? I've got the deed. The mortgage is in my name. Stop it, or you're going to lose the house. I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, it's my house. They immediately took him to court. We slipped on the dining room floor. It was polished wood, and it was too slippery, and we slipped. Kids said into court, out of court, into court, out of court. They knew how to play the game, and they made him Gehenna. It became a rental from Gehenna. It became Gehenna for him, and he was in court and out of court, and he goes knocking on the door. Can I please have my rent? Oh, you're bothering me? They got a court order, a restraining order. He's not allowed within half a mile of the house, 500 yards of the house. He can't go near the place. It's Meshuggah. It's my house. I got the deed. And they were playing with the court.
That's how it is.
It went on for 2 years. 2 years. They didn't pay rent. Finally, he came to Reb Brag. How he got in hold of Reb Brag, I don't know, but he told Reb Brag the story. Reb Brag said, "This is Meshuggah. This is God's Meshuggah. I never heard of such a story." He says, "I can't." But this sounds. We have to understand. This is Yosef HaTzadik exactly. Yosef with his brothers, and they sold him and everything. But he went through Gehenna because of his brothers. Now, how did he respond? So we have to learn from here. It's a Gezerah min Hashemayim. What is a Gezerah min Hashemayim? There must be a Gezerah. This is obviously Mida Keneged Mida. It's so Meshuggah, the story. You didn't do anything to this guy, so obviously this is Mida Keneged Mida. What did I do wrong? The only thing I can think of, said Reb Brad, is that in a previous Gilgul you did the same thing to somebody then. And therefore Kodesh Baruch is getting back at you now. There is such a concept. It doesn't make any sense. So what are you supposed to do? If you remember, we talked about Einod Milvado. We talked about the Nefesh HaChaim with the marvelous skula. There's a Chovos Halavavis that predates the Nefesh HaChaim by hundreds of years. The Chovos Halavavis says anybody who puts his betochen or his faith in anybody else or anything else besides Hashem, so Hashem puts him under the power of that person or situation. Only when you believe totally in Hashem is Hashem with you totally. The Nefesh HaChaim explained it in his way of Einod Milvado. He explained it in Einod Milvado. If you think, like the witch, right? Rabbi Chanina ben Doisha and the witch. If Chanina ben Doisha had thought that the witch has any power over him, then the witch has power over him. Chanina ben Doisa says, Ein od milvado. There's nothing but Hashem. The witch has no power. Therefore, the witch has no power over him. As long as you don't believe 100%, you're not mevatel yadas and accepting it, this is totally from Hashem, this mishagas, this crazy episode is heaven sent, and it's all Hashem running the show. Mevatel yadas, and he will go away. If you're not mevatel yadas, you are empowering him. Now, how do we usually react? That Shagets, that mama, she's a Russian Marusha. You know, I wish he would. I wish he would have a traffic accident and wind up in the hospital. Says, every time you wish, give him a Misha Beirich. The Misha Beirich comes back to bite you. No Misha Beirichs. It's not him. It's the Rebbeinu Shalom. He went. He told him, "Be mavatul, give up. Just not, I don't mean give up in that term, but give up of your concept. It's not him. It's the Rebbeinu Shalom. Accept it, and I promise you, he will go away." That's very hard. We're in the middle of such a thing. It's very hard to do that. But he did. So finally they got to a judge. And the judge looked at the case and says, "This is crazy. He's got the deed, he's got the mortgage, and he's saying it's his house. What's going on over here? What's your proof that it's your house?" So then with that judge, things started turning. So the guy started, realizing that the game is up. So he found another house to rent down the block, a couple of blocks away. Good luck to that landlord. So he found it, but he saw that it took time for whatever the proceedings in the court. It took time. It didn't exactly work. It didn't work out fast. So he it's amazing. He wanted to assess the damage. He wanted to see. He knew that the guy was getting out. He knew the guy was getting out. So he wanted to see he hired detectives, and he wanted to see where he lived. He wanted to know if he stole the furniture, and he couldn't get into the place. He came with a policeman one day. He tried the lock. And he tried his keys. And the wife comes, screaming at him. "What are you doing?" He says, "I want to get in." "It's not your house. You changed all the locks." "That's right, we changed the locks. It's our house. We changed all the locks and everything like that." So, but I have a cop. The cop came with me. I want to say, "I don't care. I'm going to call the police on you." But I am the police. I'm calling the police on you. Mom, it was out of fantasy world, fantasy land. So finally, the judge, after a couple of hearings, the judge says he's got to get out of the house. So then that was a couple of months. This is a recent story. Finishing up now. So then the guy came with his wife to court. And he says, "Judge, okay, we have to get out, but we have a holiday coming up. It's Hanukkah. And it's so hectic during a holiday season."
Yep.
So hectic, and we just are not able to get, can you just give us a little bit more time? So he gave them till January 1st. That's how recent this story is. He gave them till January 1st to get out. Okay. So then he wants to assess the damage. He knows this. Now he officially they don't have to leave until January 1st, but he went to assess the damage, and as he's there with trying to see what's going on. So the guy drives up and says, "Get off my property!" He had moved out already. He was already down the road, right? And he says they had stolen the pool furniture, and he wanted to see what else it is, and they're holding by the end now. They had an emergency. He said this 2 weeks ago. I heard they had an emergency hearing because to assess the damages, they had broken the back porch, and who knows what else. He's got to figure out what else they stole. But it's holding by the end. What do we see from here? If you are in such a challenge, Nisoyan, whatever you want to call it, test, Badika, right? All the words that we used. If you're in such a challenge with such a shmegegi, don't think bad of him. The more you think bad of him, the more you're empowering him. You're giving him power over you. Like Hanina ben Dosa and the witch. If Hanina ben Dosa would have been afraid of the witch, he would have been empowering the witch. Instead, he thought, Ein od milvado. There's nothing but Hashem. Nothing but Hashem. And that's how Yosef got through this whole episode. When did it start? There's an amazing Orach Chaim. There's an amazing Orach Chaim. When they threw Yosef into, you have to be a big Baal Musar to come to this idea. Yosef was thrown, he was stripped naked, thrown into the pit. The Azorius, they tried to beat him up. It says in the Medrash that they mamish beat him up. And then they threw him into the pit, and they were talking about, he hears them talking about selling him. So Yosef says, this is crazy. It's so out of character. My brothers are Rosh Sanhedrin. They're part of the Sanhedrin of those days. They had a Sanhedrin of B'nai Shem. And we saw from the Maisa with Yehuda and Tamar. They were Talmidei Chachamim. And this is so out of character for that, and then to act with such Azorius. It can't be. It can't be. He immediately realized this is from the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and he accepted it, and he had no tainas against them. And he saw from one point to the other. Potiphar made him, the head butler over the whole house. He saw that wherever he went, he became the head. And then he had the Maisa with Ashes Potiphar, and he went into jail. And then he became the head jail keeper. He was the head jail keeper. Wherever he went, he saw that he was having uncanny hatzlacha. And then he was rushed off to Paro, and he became overnight a viceroy, second in command. He's watching this over this whole time period. This whole time period was 10 years, and then it was 10, 12, and then another 2 years. So it's 14 years. It was 14 years. So over this 14 years, 7 years. 9. It was 12, and 9 is 21 years. It was 21. Wait, 12 and 7. 12 and 9. It's the 2 years of the famine.
How many years before he was with Potiphar?
Okay, well, it's around 21 years, right? 22 years. It says 22 years until he finally brought Yaakov down. Yaakov had 22 years that he had to suffer. He had to suffer for 22 years. He didn't do kibbutz of 22 years. He was watching what was happening, and he realized this. The Orach Chaim said, "This is obviously only from Hashem. This obviously it's a Maisa from Hashem." So Brag says he spoke to a certain Rav. A certain Rav, let's say Rabbi of a shul, let's say, right? And he needed to go somewhere, so he asked one of his congregants, "Can you give him a lift?" So he said, "Sure." People want to do favors to the Rav. So he got in the car. He's sitting in the back seat of the car, and he looks in the front seat. There's 2 steering wheels. Steering wheel over here, steering wheel over there. 2 steering wheels, on the right and on the left. 2 steering wheels. It looked like a normal car from the outside, but what's going on? So he asked the driver, "What's going on here? What's these 2 steering wheels?" So the guy smiles. He says, this is a normal car, like any other car. It's only got one steering wheel. But I have a hyperactive kid, and he drives me nuts. Every time he comes into the car, he hops into my seat, into my lap, and he wants to drive the car with Daddy. You know, and I can't drive. He bothers me. I can't do anything. So I went to a garage. I had them install a fake steering wheel. So I sit in my seat. He sits in his seat, and he watches me. When I turn left, he turns left. And when I turn right, he turns right. And he's happy, and I'm happy. I'm able to drive, and he leaves me alone. So the rabbi says, that was a great idea. That was a great idea. And that's exactly what the Ribbono Shel Olam is doing. The Ribbono Shel Olam has all these hyperactive kids, and they all want to play God. They all want to play God and make believe that they're running the world. So he gives them a fake steering wheel. Some people he makes them the president of the United States. He's got the steering wheel, the biggest steering wheel in the world. President of the United States. Another guy is a governor, or he's a prime minister, right? He's prime minister of the state of Israel, or he's a mayor of a city. He's got a steering wheel. He thinks he's running the place. You got it. Some people have they put uniforms on them. He's the head of the police department, so he's got the police uniform, and he thinks he's running the police department. And another guy has got a doctor's uniform on, and he thinks he's running the Kupa Cholim, or he thinks he's running the big hospital. Everybody thinks he's a big macher. Everybody thinks he's a big macher, and he's running the show. And it's all a fake steering wheel. It doesn't do anything, because the Ribbono Shel Olam is doing everything. Ribbono Shel Olam is doing everything. And it's very hard for us to understand. But if we understand it, we take away, we don't empower them. A person gets hit with an audit. Lo aleinu. That's scary. You know, you get hit with an audit from the tax authorities, right? Or you have a bad business deal, or a partner does you dirty. You know, whatever happens. Reb Bragg says he spoke to. Unfortunately, there's a big magefa in America. Divorces. Hashem Yerachim. Divorces, and they come to the rabbi. They want to cry on the rabbi's shoulder. So the one who feels dejected, he feels like his wife ran away from him or whatever, or husband ran away, but whoever ran away. So he asked, and what do you think caused all this? It was the therapist. It was my mother-in-law. It was her mother. It was his mother. It was the friends. They chewed the ear. They chewed his ear off, or her ear off. So they're. You have to get through your head. It was you. Nobody did it to you except Hashem. Nobody did it to you except Hashem. Why did it happen? Hashem was something as tragic as that. Why should Hashem do that and break up a family? It's not the therapist. It's not the mother-in-law. It's not the friends. It's Hashem. And He wants to give a wake-up call. You need a wake-up call. If something tragic like that happens, it's a wake-up call. And then you have to figure out how you have to better yourself and get more in tune with the Ribbono Shel Olam's world. That's what we discussed last time, several times ago. Hashem is running the world. It's a GPS. What's GPS? God's personal supervision. It's a GPS. Wherever you go, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show. He's taking care of you. put your mind let him run the steering wheel. Leave the driving up to him. You know, that was the Greyhound bus. Leave the driving up to us. Leave the driving up to the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's a very difficult lesson to learn. We all have the problems with the lesson, with this. We all get hit with it. But again, there's the aspiration and the expectation. The aspiration is Chanina ben Doisa. Chanina ben Doisa. Skula Niflo. Chanina ben Doisa. This is the Nefesh HaChaim. Nefesh HaChaim in Shar Gimel Perik Yud Beis. Lehesu levatel miyolav kol dinam v'ritzoynis acherim. Other people want to take advantage of you. Other people want to do bad to you. If the person is koveya belibo lemar, it's Hashem Elokim Amiti, ein od milvado. They are not doing it. Only Hashem is doing it. Everything is full of the achdus of Hashem. If you're mavatal in your heart, bittul gomor, that's hard. Bittul gomor, I really can't do anything. And you don't mashkiach klal on any koyach. Don't worry about them. Don't worry about them, whether it's your neighbors, your boss, the insurance company, whoever it is. Don't worry about, you have to do your ishtadlis of al piteva, but you're going through motions which don't mean anything. It's a steering wheel which is not attached to anything. You meshabed umedabek toar machshavto, only to the Adon Yichidi, the Adon Yochid Baruch Hu. Then memeli is batl of kol hakoychos. No, but you don't empower the others who are out to get you. Don't empower them. That's what the Chavos Halabavah says. If you believe in them, you are empowering them. If you believe in the witch, you're empowering the witch. There's nothing else but them. On the bottom here, this is Ben Zion Epstein. He says this school is Hashem Silcha Yadi Minecha. It's a shadow. Hashem is your shadow. It depends on what you're doing. If you're frowning at Hashem and getting angry at Him, Hashem is frowning at you. If you're smiling at Hashem and saying, I accept you, Hashem, He's your tzeil, He's your shadow. Whatever you do, you've waved to Him, He waves back. So that's what we have to do. Everything is orchestrated by Hashem. Hashem is in control. Don't be, I'm talking big. I'm talking big. It's a tall order. It's a tall order. I mean, we again, the aspirations and expectations, we're human beings, we're not Yosef at Tzaddik, and we get jolted. But sit down, when it happens, and you have to over and over and over again in your mind, repeat and try to bring it in, to bring the thought into your heart that Hashem is in control. Just remember the word GPS. Every time you look at Waze, remember GPS. Hashem is in control, nobody else, and there's nothing to worry about. And then the other Hashem, we can get through any challenge on the soyin that Hashem throws at us.
Sure.